Geraldo, good to see you. At some point, I'm going to interrupt you to go back to one of these two events, but wanted to get your thoughts here. We wrote about this today, that for Democrats, yourself included, who say that Kamala Harris must be elected because Donald Trump is a threat to the republic, a threat to democracy, whatever you want to call it, are awfully stingy in how they are willing to reach out to Republicans. There are half a dozen things Kamala Harris could say tonight about the border, about not allowing boys to play in girls' sports, about Mitt Romney as Secretary of State, Mike Gallagher, the former congressman, as Defense Secretary. All sorts of things she could do to reach across the aisle to moderate Republicans. And yet she refuses to do that. Why?
Well, let me just say, first of all, that the Donald Trump that we're seeing this evening is the very charming, very compassionate, charismatic, very approachable. He seems, he's a nice guy. And, my friendship with him was not based on nothing. It was because that's the guy. Unfortunately, his politics diverged from mine and caused a great rift. I think that in terms of reaching across the aisle, and then you mentioned immigration, why didn't President Trump embrace the Senate bill to reform our immigration system? Reaching across the aisle, it goes both ways.
Geraldo, try to answer the question, though, without the whataboutism. Because you're making the point that Donald Trump is so dangerous he must be stopped at any cost. Yet Democrats are not willing to pay even a small cost.
I didn't make that point. You're putting words in my mouth, Leland. I never said he had to be stopped at all costs. You make me sound like a radical, a violent person. I suggest to you that I personally will not be voting for Donald Trump because of three reasons. I think his creation of, or his destruction of Roe v. Wade and the protections for abortion, the immigration reform bill that he did not embrace. Rather, he has chosen to become an absolute racist when it comes to speaking of particularly Latin undocumented immigrants, comparing them basically to animals. It's horrifying. I don't know how any Latino person of any self-esteem, any self-respect would be in favor of
you may not know about it, Geraldo, but more Latinos are
poisoning the blood of the country.
More Latinos are voting for Donald Trump or polling for Donald Trump now than in 2016 and in 2020. He's on to something. I don't know how Democrats and Kamala Harris supporters think they are going to convince either black men who are leaving Kamala Harris or Latinos who are leaving Kamala Harris by saying, I don't know how you're in your right mind. Isn't it worth examining why these people are leaving Kamala Harris for Donald Trump rather than just telling them they're wrong?
Oh, I want to be very frank about the fact that I believe that the immigration system and the situation on the border represents the biggest failure of the Democratic administration, of the Biden-Harris administration. They have absolutely dropped the ball when it comes to the southern border and immigration generally. My point is, rather than work together, Donald Trump sought to exacerbate the divisions. He sought to put the two sides.
Okay.
He rejected out of hand the possibility that there could be a compromise.
Right. Donald Trump played politics.
No, he's playing politics right now.
Okay, that's fine. He's playing politics. Wouldn't that speak all the more, and I'm still trying to get an answer to this question, why Democrats, when given the opportunity to rise above, when rather than doubling down on how evil Donald Trump is tonight, Kamala Harris could come out and say, look, on day one, I will put in all of the Trump-era border restrictions that secured the border, and I am going to end sanctuary cities in terms of the federal government allowing them, and I'm going to deport every felon who's an illegal immigrant. Her numbers would go up by 10 points. It is perplexing to me why the progressive ideals are so sacrosanct.
Right. I am not here to shill for Kamala Harris or the Democrats. I am not voting for Donald Trump because I do not believe that he can be trusted to honor the Constitution of the United States. I am not voting for Donald Trump principally, aside from abortion and immigration rights. I am not voting for Donald Trump because he proved that he put himself and his own personal future ahead of the future of the country and the Constitution of the United States. That was the words from his own Vice President, Mike Pence. And what he did on January 6th and so forth deserved impeachment and rejects. I pledged then they could never.
I hear you. Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.